Hi, boys and girls. Mrs. Kappel here. Boys and girls, I know I sent you another book already on Seesaw, but if we were in school, after I read the book about seahorses, I would have read this book by Eric Carle called Mr. Seahorse. So I'm so glad that I found this book on Internet Archive. It is a website. I told your parents about it. If you know the name of a book, they have lots and lots of books here, and you can read it kind of just like this. So, as you can see, Mr. Seahorse won the gold medal. I can't see which one it is. I'm assuming it's the Caldecott because it is a picture book style, but it could also be, I'm not sure if it's the Thiedel Geisel. So I will look into that because it's a little hard to tell. Um, but let's get started on Mr. Seahorse. Now, I want you to notice all these beautiful colors. We know Eric Carle is also an artist, and his favorite form, his favorite medium, that means, does he use clay? Is he a sculptor? Does he use oil paint? Does he use Play-Doh? No, he uses water paints. So that's his favorite medium as he illustrates his pictures. So he uses lots of watercolors. And as you can see here, he uses these thinner colors to make it look like the water. Now, this is a truly special book because you'll notice, I hope we'll be able to notice it, that some of the pages are kind of see-through. If you get a chance to check out this book in the library, when the libraries open up again, I want you to do that because it is truly magnificent. Okay, let's get started. Mr. Seahorse. And those are his end pages. What do you think those remind you of? Maybe seahorse babies? Okay, here we go. Mr. and Mrs. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea. Mrs. Seahorse began to wiggle and twist this way and that. "It's time for me to lay my eggs," she said. "Can I help?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Oh, yes, thank you," said Mrs. Seahorse, and she laid her eggs into a pouch on Mr. Seahorse's belly. "I'll take good care of our eggs," said Mr. Seahorse. "I promise." As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by a group of trumpet fish hidden in a patch of reeds. Okay, so you can see the green reeds here, but the trumpet fish, that's their environment. That's where they try to stay camouflaged. And it's a little hard to see. If I had turned this page, it would have just been a clear page of the trumpet fish, and then you would have seen the green reeds. So like I said, check it out at the library. But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Stickleback?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Delighted," replied Mr. Stickleback. "I just built a nest, and right away Mrs. Stickleback laid her eggs into it. Now I'm taking good care of them until they hatch." "Keep up the good work," said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. So as you are noticing, lots and lots of these fish, these daddy fish, are in charge of taking care of the babies. As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by a lionfish hidden behind a coral reef. Can you see the lionfish in there? It's a little tricky to see. That's his camouflage, the coral. But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Tilapia?" asked Mr. Seahorse. Mr. Tilapia couldn't answer. His mouth was full of eggs. I know," said Mr. Seahorse. "Mrs. Tilapia laid her eggs, and now you're taking good care of them until they hatch." Mr. Tilapia nodded his head. "You must be very happy," said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. So the daddy tilapia fish holds the eggs in his mouth until they hatch. As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by several leaf fish hiding among the seaweed. It sure is tricky to see those leaf fish. Isn't that wonderful that they named them after the environment where they feel the most safe and most camouflaged? But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Curtis?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Perfectly fine," said Mr. Curtis. "Mrs. Curtis laid her eggs and I have stuck them on my head. Now I'm taking good care of them until they hatch." "You are doing a good job," said Mr. Seahorse, and on his way. So the Curtis fish, look where he keeps his eggs. As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by a stonefish hidden behind a big rock. "I can hardly see Mr. Stonefish." But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Pipe?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Couldn't be better," replied Mr. Pipe. "Mrs. Pipe laid her eggs along my belly, and now I'm taking good care of them until they hatch." "You should feel very proud of yourself," said Mr. Seahorse. He swam on his way. So the pipefish keeps the eggs here on his belly. Are any of these fish making you think, or wow, or how, or why? But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Bullhead?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Tip top," replied Mr. Bullhead. "Mrs. Bullhead laid her eggs and the eggs hatched. Now I'm babysitting." "You're doing a fine job," said Mr. Seahorse and swam on his way. Now, if you were the dad, are you babysitting or are you just being a good dad watching your babies? Yeah, that's what I think too. The time had come for the Seahorse babies to be born. Mr. Seahorse wiggled and twisted this way and that. At last, the babies tumbled from Mr. Seahorse's pouch and swam away. One baby turned around and tried to come back into the pouch. "Oh, no," said Mr. Seahorse. "I do love you, but now you are ready to be on your own." The end. And there is Mr. Eric Carl, and you can tell he's drawing or sketching or painting. It's a little hard to see what he has in his hand, but he's working on the pictures that he made for Mr. Seahorse. So, boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed this. This is a fiction story, but there's lots of real facts in here. And I would love it if you would look up some of these fish and have your grown up help you, of course, and find out a little bit more if you were curious about how these fish take care of their babies, which is not something most fish do. In fact, most fish, they lay their eggs and off they go. But this is a truly special kind of fish. So, boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed Mr. Seahorse. I'll see you later. Bye bye for now.